Hello, this is Gary Flisspart. I came up with the GLFPE, or the GLF Programming Environment, as a live boot Linux distribution based on Debian 9 to give me a portable programming environment which I could use and share. So if I wanted to work on some source code and hand it to somebody, I could hand them an environment that would also run it without requiring them to install a bunch of things that they didn't understand. At any event, I'm going to demonstrate what it's like to compile a long list of programs. The programs on this particular list are open source programs, and I'm running a 32-bit version of the operating system at this point, so I'm going to pick Deb9 open source v32. I'm going to extract it to a source folder that I've set up under the user directory. Using the built-in archive management. Most of these utilities are available on a base Debian system if you download the official ISO, but I've tweaked some things that are in this system, added a bunch of utilities, and so extended a few of the utilities so that they do more for me. At any event, I'm looking for that, and I will now extract, and as it's extracting, you'll see things popping up there. I'm going to get this compile started. It takes a few minutes, so I'm going to cut the recording off after showing a little bit of what happens, and resume later after it's worked. I have some auto build scripts that will compile all of the code that's in here unattended from the command line. I'm looking for open auto build source, this one, and file manager will let me start up, and the first thing it has to compile are some local libraries that I reuse in other programs. Now it's going to be doing these kind of compiles on the command line for maybe about 20 minutes on this relatively slowish computer. So I'm going to pause the recording now, and I'll get back with you when it's appropriate. Okay, I'm back. It's getting close to the end of the compile sequence. As you can see, it's going through a long series of Wix widgets demos. Wix widgets is a GUI library that's pretty big and pretty useful, but it takes a little while to compile stuff in it because it's so large. At any event, I've got a series of demos that are taken right from the Wix widget source code that I compiled to show off. One of the things I have to deal with here is that if you notice on the free space available, it's going down. And what's happening is that the application I'm using, Record My Desktop, to record this session does take up some memory, and when you're running a live boot demo, it's easy to run out of memory recording the video. So I'm going to take the policy of burning half my bridges as I'm halfway across. I'm going to leave on here enough stuff to demonstrate later, but I'll take a few things off of here which okay, I'm back again. Had a little hiccup on the recording. The previous batch compile script has finished, and I have finished deleting some space, so I've got room to work. This is only necessary because I'm using up a lot of space in the home directory to do the compilations, but because when you do a live boot, you don't really use up disk space. You use most disk space is simulated out of RAM. You can run out if you're not careful. So I'm trying to make sure I've still got enough room here to run both this demonstration and the recording. At any event, just so I can show you some of the things that were compiled just now. Okay, there are several GUI libraries included. For example, there's a GUI library that does SDL, and the SDL library, here's a test in which the SDL library can use fonts, TrueType fonts, to do a job. That was a simple test of that. Wix widgets, which I described a while ago while it was compiling. There's a minimal program test here. It shows you have options for GUIs that I've gone ahead and built into the library and can be used. Most of the code that I've gotten in here that deals with those libraries is sample code that came from the libraries themselves. Allegro is another such library. This is a very simple test, as you can see. But there are other tests that I could do here. Before I do another test, I'm going to show you some, well, for example here, I will show you this test. This is Kersey's library is a terminal-based graphical program. Essentially, within terminal mode, you can get pseudo graphics, character graphics. And this is an example of a demo program that comes with, oops, I have to run that one in terminal. But you can see fireworks done on a terminal. Anyway, that was just a demo of that. One reason I did that just now is because I want to demonstrate actually compiling that program. I use a very simple IDE that I found source code for, and I've been able to compile for both Windows and Linux. There are certainly better ones available, but I will try the same test that I just did. I can rebuild the make file from its project specification, compile it clean, and then compile it. Okay, it compiled, and I can run it. One of the tools is run project, run in console, and there you see the firework thing. So you can compile individual projects. The project files themselves, one reason I use the V IDE, which even though it's obsolete even by its creator, he doesn't maintain it even though he leaves it out there. I've been able to maintain the code myself, to at least on my own. I've been able to keep it going despite changes in the C specification over the years. I can still get it compiled, and I can still use it, and I can still port it. And it has one major advantage. It has a text-based project file, which is easy for me to edit and convert from one format to another. A little more difficult with some other project formats that are in more obscure formats, binary formats, or even XTML type formats or something like that. They're just XML formats are harder to edit on the fly. Anyway, that was an example of actually compiling a program. You've seen several programs working. Some of the programs I'm particularly proud of. I've been programming I was programming years ago in MS-DOS using Borland TurboC. It came with a graphical demonstration program. That program, I was able to port it first to Windows and then to Linux, and it looks like this, and it has a lot of features to demonstrate, and this looks more or less what it looked like if you were running the program under TurboC on an old VGA screen under DOS, but done in a window. Now, what makes that gives me any reason to be particularly proud, besides the ability to port it, was that in order to port it, I had to come up with my own library for X Windows under Linux for X. And in the process of creating that, I came up with this particular thing to test things out and to demonstrate it. But a lot of features I had to support were tested here, including flood fills, drawing text in various directions, different sizes, different fonts, flood fills that fit patterns, various types of patterns that were supported, and user-supplied patterns. In any event, this is pretty much all my own code, with the exception of that which was necessary to run the X Windows stuff itself, which was largely gathered from arcane Googled sources. X Windows is all open source, but it's pretty obscure. But it is at the foundation of everything Linux that's graphical, so it's important to have it around. Another library that I included in here was the OpenGL, or the GL library, and there's some interesting things that can be programmed from that. Here's an interesting demo that looks like you're doing 3D CAD. You can rotate the image by typing the X and Y and Z keys, and it looks pretty impressive. The thing that's impressive about this stuff, and the fact that you can do that, isn't so much that you can do it, it's that you can create it from scratch, because the code that does that looks like this. This is the C program that generated that demonstration. I'm not here to explain the code, I'm just here to say that there's the code. If you can understand it and edit it, you can change the nature of that program, or you can come up with your own program that works in a similar or even different manner.